She wasn't a bridesmaid. She wasn't even a guest. At her own sister's wedding, Eliza Quinn was handed a mop and a color-coded task list. But hours later, in front of the entire ballroom, the groom's brother raised his glass and said, "To the real orchestrator behind tonight, ever been treated like the help in your own family? Share your story, this one flips the script." The invitation didn't mention me, just a line under support staff, Eliza Quinn. I stared at it again, holding the thick cardstock between my fingers like it might change if I blinked slowly enough. The shimmer of gold lettering caught the sunlight pouring through the town car window, mocking me. My name wasn't listed under bridal party or family, just support staff. A bullet point. No title, no relation, no soul. As the driver turned onto the winding drive of the Quinn estate, I tucked the invitation back into my purse, slipped on the calm face I'd perfected since high school, and exhaled through clenched teeth. Ever since high school, whenever I succeeded, Mom would whisper, "Don't overshadow Sienna." So I learned to dim. The estate was as theatrical as ever. Whitewashed pillars, manicured hedges, floral arches being hoisted by sweating interns. Sienna didn't want elegance. She wanted spectacle. Miss Quinn, a coordinator, greeted me at the foot of the circular driveway, clipboard in hand. "You'll find your schedule inside this folder. First logistics meeting starts in 20. Mother Vivian requested the revised table chart by lunch." I didn't correct the miss. What was the point I took? The folder nodded and walked through the grand double doors into the house I once called home, though it never really belonged to me. Vivian was at the center of the foyer, already directing a battalion of vendors. She turned to me with her signature clipped smile and air kiss of obligation. "Oh, good you're here. The centerpiece heights are off by at least half an inch. Don't forget to double-check the guest table layouts. No hug. Not even a 'how was the flight?'" I swallowed the sting, nodded, and added centerpieces to the mental checklist I wasn't supposed to need. The kitchen smelled of freshly steamed asparagus and stress. I found Sienna lounging barefoot on a bar stool, scrolling through her phone while sipping some spirulina nightmare in a gold-rimmed glass. "Eliza," she trilled, not looking up. "You're the best backstage manager I know. This place would fall apart without you. I didn't realize I was managing anything." She finally glanced up, perfectly arched, brow raised. "Oh, come on. You're amazing at organizing things. Delegation is your superpower." Right, because in this family, delegation was how I'd survived, not how I wanted to be seen. I flipped through the printed schedule inside the folder. My name appeared 8 times. Under vendor liaison, guest coordination, emergency point person, a role that didn't exist until now. A color-coded hellscape curated just for me. It wasn't until I walked into the bridal suite that it really hit. There, hanging on a rack, 10 blush-colored bridesmaid gowns, one for each of Sienna's sorority sisters influencers, and one woman she met in Tulum last winter. I scanned the rack twice. My size wasn't there. "Oh," Sienna said, catching my glance. "I thought you'd prefer to be free for support tasks. Didn't want to overload you. Support tasks." That was who I was to her. Not a sister. A utility. Outside, I crossed the garden to the reception tent to triple-check the seating arrangements. One of the guests, a woman in oversized sunglasses and a Chanel suit, waved me down. "Are you the event planner?" I opened my mouth, closed it, nodded slightly. Easier than explaining. Inside the tent, heat pressed against my skin like shame. I walked up and down the rows of chairs, pretending not to notice my own name on the table chart, Eliza Quinn, vendor support table. Later that evening, as the staff cleared plates and Sienna rehearsed her entrance in slow motion, I found a sliver of nerve and stepped toward Vivian. "Mom," I said softly, "I was wondering if I might say something at the reception. Just a toast. Nothing big." She didn't even look up from her phone. The less noise, the smoother the ceremony. My throat tightened. I nodded, stepped back, swallowed it all. Again. That night, the main hall buzzed with decorators and waiters resetting after rehearsal. The air carried hints of pine cleaner and florals. I was restocking water bottles when someone bumped into a cocktail tray. Glass-shattered liquid spread like a mirror of my mood. A younger cousin, Teddy, maybe 16, looked around, spotted me, then handed me a mop like it was the most natural thing in the world. I took it without protest. I adjusted the bride's veil, fixed the wine spill, and handed the mic to the MC. Yet no one thanked me. Outside the glass ballroom, birds sang like nothing was wrong. But inside, the hum of champagne toasts and orchestral strings blurred into something hollow. My heels pinched. The dress, resized by mistake, they'd said was half a size too tight, pressing against my ribs like a reminder I didn't belong. "It's couture," Sienna said sweetly when I'd mentioned it earlier. "It should hug you. Can't have you swimming in it, right?" The smirk behind her eyes. The passive-aggressive precision. She wasn't just radiant today, she was weaponized. "Hair check," someone shouted. Bride approaching, I stepped in, smoothed the silk train, and adjusted her cathedral-length veil, while 3 photographers snapped away like I was invisible. "You're the calm in the chaos," Eliza Sienna once told me. I thought she meant it as love. Maybe she just meant I was convenient. The ceremony unfolded like a magazine spread. Floating florals, an aisle of petals, vows that sounded ghost-written by a PR team. Guests dabbed tears and posted stories. I stayed behind the scenes, coordinating late arrivals and relaying cues to the musicians via earpiece. Halfway through, Sienna's voice rang out. "I just want to thank everyone who made this magical." Her eyes swept the room with glittering charm, especially the florist's assistant who made my bouquet perfectly imperfect. There was a laugh, a few claps. I stood just beyond the spotlight next to the actual florist, who leaned over and whispered, "I didn't know she even had an assistant." I didn't correct her. What would I say? She meant me. As the first dance wound down and the lights dimmed to gold, I spotted Ethan Grant for the first time. Tall, dark suit glass of something amber in hand. Eyes sharp and curious. He wasn't mingling like his brother Noah, the ever-pleasant groom. Ethan stood still, watching people, absorbing dynamics. I was directing the catering team, making a quick adjustment to dessert placement. Table 9 had a gluten allergy. My tone was calm, clipped, efficient. Someone had to care about execution. "Excuse me?" came a voice behind me, low and wry. "Are you secretly running this event?" I turned, startled. Ethan held a glass in one hand and a raised brow in the other. I began, unsure how much to explain. "Because if you're not the actual planner, he said they should hire you. You manage people like a boss." "Seriously? Are you in operations?" I blinked. No, I'm just helping." "That's not just helping," he said, nodding toward the staff, now quietly rearranging a buffet tray at my request. "That's orchestration. That's leadership." I didn't know what to say. Compliments usually came packaged with conditions in my family praise, always followed by a reminder to be less loud, less much. But Ethan didn't look like he was playing any angle. He was just noticing. Before I could reply, someone called him back to a table for a toast. He lifted his glass, then paused just enough for his voice to carry to those near us. "To the real orchestrator behind tonight." A hush. Heads turned. His gaze didn't shift from mine. I tried to smile. My heart pounded too loud. The rest of the night passed in fragments, cake dancing photos, more spilled champagne I silently wiped. Vivian barely looked my way. Sienna twirled in a storm of diamonds and applause. I stood on the periphery for once, not sure if that was still where I wanted to be. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. "Ethan Grant. Let me know if you're ever open to a project. I like working with underestimated people." After the wedding, I didn't return home. I checked into a small motel instead and opened my old laptop for the first time in months. The motel smelled like bleach and old carpeting, and the air conditioning whined like it had opinions. I sat on the edge of the stiff mattress laptop, humming on my knees screen, glowing like an old wound reopening. I hadn't touched it since the collapse. Since the day everything I built was quietly swept into the gutter, I opened my inbox. Buried under updates, promotions, and the digital rot of neglect were the flagged messages I'd left untouched, frozen in shame and disbelief. The final emails from the investors. The vague phrases. "Concerns have been raised. Reputational risk. Due diligence uncovered instability." At the time, I was too humiliated to probe deeper. too raw to push back. I assumed they'd heard about my burnout, maybe the therapy. I blamed myself. But now, I scrolled lower. An internal message never opened. A name I recognized, someone from the Foundation's advisory board. The subject line, R.E. Eliza Quinn's temperament. Inside, copied snippets of a supposed evaluation. Warnings about my emotional volatility, leadership under pressure, and one line that turned my stomach. She exhibits signs of dissociative tendencies per anonymous concern. Anonymous. I clicked on the metadata. The original sender, a contact email linked to Vivian's estate office. My lungs tightened. My mother hadn't just discouraged me, she had dismantled me. Quietly, strategically, with the polish of someone who'd done it before. I needed confirmation. Louisa agreed to meet that afternoon. We chose a quiet cafe off Lexington, no Wi-Fi, cash only, a relic from another time. She looked the same, maybe a little grayer at the temples, but her eyes hadn't changed. Still alert. Still fierce. I was wondering when you'd come around. She said, setting her espresso down without touching it. Why didn't you tell me back then? You weren't ready to hear it, Louisa said simply. Vivian didn't just cut you from the Quinn Foundation project, she made sure you'd be radioactive in the nonprofit circuit. My hands curled around the ceramic cup, heat pulsing through my palms. She said you were too unstable to manage clinical trials, too emotional to oversee patient support programs. She pulled strings, called in old debts. Most people didn't even know she was behind it. I stared at her. You did. Louisa nodded, then reached into her bag. And I recorded one of the calls. She passed me a USB drive. I shouldn't have it, she added. But I kept it, because I knew one day you'd stop dimming. Back in the motel, I transferred the file. The audio was grainy, but unmistakable. Vivian's voice. We need to make sure she's seen as fragile. She'll sabotage herself if we just give her the room. A man's voice. You want a formal assessment? I want documentation. I sat frozen. That night, Ethan called. Not a text. A real call late enough to mean he'd waited. Rough day, he asked, voice low, gentle. You could say that. You ready to fight back? I don't know what that even looks like. It looks like this, he said. You gather. You build your case. You take back the narrative. But it has to be on your terms, Eliza. Not mine. Not anyone else's. He didn't sound like he pitied me. He sounded like he respected me. I opened a new folder on my desktop, named it Reclaiming Quinn, Evidence. For the first time, I wasn't just angry. I was prepared. Ethan's voice came again just before we hung up. What if we make the next Grant Gala? The scene of their reckoning, buried beneath folders labeled Philanthropy Strategy, was a locked PDF named Mental Health Review, EQ PDF. I stared at the file name, the initials unmistakably mind pulse climbing slowly as I double-clicked. A prompt blinked on the screen, password required. I tried the obvious first, my birthday. Then my middle name. Nothing. After a long breath, I typed in Sienna 2020, the year Vivian had started tightening her grip over the foundation, cloaked in glitter and speeches. The file opened. The first page bore the Quinn Foundation header and a therapist's watermark. It looked official. But the words didn't belong to me. Subject demonstrates obsessive tendencies, difficulty maintaining emotional balance in high-stakes environments. The language was clinical, weaponized, and utterly manufactured. Vivian once told a therapist right in front of me, she's obsessive, clinical. She overthinks everything. I laughed then. I'm not laughing now. Louisa's apartment in Park Slope was crowded with paperwork and plants, a strange mix of warmth and residual rebellion. She handed me a second USB, her mouth tight with rage. These are HR documents I salvaged before they purged my access. One's a complaint letter filed under an alias, but the phrasing is pure Vivian. The other is a therapist referral, signed with your mother's name. She poured tea, but neither of us touched it. She wanted you discredited before you even had a platform, Louisa said. The goal was never to protect the foundation. It was to erase your credibility. I nodded, lips pressed into a thin line, and it worked. For a while. Ethan joined via secure video link later that afternoon. Behind him, a wall of sleek Grant Law offices gleamed in chrome and glass. We reviewed the financial logs, he said. Your name was removed from trustee-level access to the Quinn Foundation's operating funds in July 2021. The trigger A flagged mental health concerns cited by the board. That concern originated with Vivian, I said. Ethan nodded grimly. We have enough for a legal review, even a petition to reopen your claim as majority inheritor. But there's more. He sent over a compressed folder. Inside a low-resolution video dated October 2021, the file was titled, Dad Hospice Statement, Final. I watched in stunned silence as my father, frail voice rasping but eyes clear, looked into the camera. I've made the decision. My shares in the foundation go to Eliza. She built it and she'll know how to protect it better than anyone. The video ended. He never had the strength to formalize it, Louisa murmured, but it shows intent. I copied everything twice onto cloud storage, a spare drive, and an encrypted folder. Then I began assembling a timeline. Emails, reports, audio files, the video. Louisa helped map the threads Ethan annotated legal vulnerabilities. We called it the Truth Archive. Hours later, while sketching the first draft of my reveal, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. Eliza. Vivian's voice cut like a blade wrapped in velvet. I know what you've been doing. Silence stretched. You want a war? She continued, voice coiling into something almost proud. I raised you for one. I didn't answer. I simply ended the call. Then I opened a new slide deck on my laptop. At the top, I typed the title in bold white letters against a black background, The Truth Gala, 12th of August, 2023. Spotlight swept across a glass dome. Guests sipped champagne. And I stood with a remote in hand, about to detonate 20 years of silence. The Grant Holdings Gala shimmered like a mirage on the rooftop skyline of Manhattan. White orchids, marble pillars, strings of musicians beside ice sculptures no one dared touch. I watched the crowd swirl from the side stage, pulse-measured fingers cold around the clicker. This wasn't just an event. It was a reckoning with velvet gloves. I'd worn black. Not out of mourning, but because it made my intentions unmistakable. Ethan found me moments before the dinner bell. His tux crisp, his eyes sharp beneath the soft lighting. You'll know the moment, he said. Don't flinch. Then came Louisa, a quiet hand squeezing my shoulder. You're not doing this just for you anymore. The main ballroom dimmed. Lights narrowed to the podium. And then something unexpected. Noah took the microphone, his voice warm and neutral, classic Noah. Tonight, in the spirit of truth and gratitude, we're honored to have someone speak who knows both intimately. Please welcome Eliza Quinn. Gasps. A few polite claps. I stepped forward, heels silent against the marble floor. Vivian's eyes locked on mine from table 7. Sienna's lips parted in theatrical confusion. Thank you, Noah, I began. And thank you to everyone here who believes truth matters more than curated perfection. Behind me, the screen blinked to life. A white slide. A timeline. Quinn Foundation. The real story. I clicked once. A cascading series of emails appeared, names redacted, but patterns clear. The faked therapist notes. The anonymous complaints. The altered board minutes. Click. A scanned letter. Forged signature. Vivian's. Click. An HR memo describing Louisa as disruptive and unprofessional. A pattern. A tool. Not a reason. Louisa stepped forward from the side of the room, arms crossed, chin lifted. She didn't need to speak. She was the proof. Murmurs rose. Then Sienna's voice rang out, sweet and slicing. This is slander. She's mentally unstable. Ask any therapist we hired. I turned, let the silence hold. Then played the final file. The ballroom echoed with the crackle of a hospice room mic. My father's voice, dry, frail, but unmistakably clear. My daughter Eliza deserves it all. I trust no one else. Make sure she gets the foundation. It's hers. It always was. Silence fell like snowfall. Then Vivian stood. Not rushed, not flustered. but with the elegance of a queen abdicating. She turned and walked out. For a moment, no one moved, and then Ethan, bless him, stepped up beside me. He clapped once, twice, slow, deliberate. Others followed. A wave of hands like dominoes. I didn't smile. Not yet. My knees locked. My spine unbending. Later, alone in the green room, my phone buzzed. Notification: Vivian Quinn resigns from all board positions citing health concerns. I exhaled. Not a victory. Not yet. But a beginning. They didn't just try to erase me. They rewrote who I was. But I'm writing the ending. The scent of new paint still lingered in the corners, faint beneath the aroma of warm bread and herbal tea. Light spilled through wide windows, brushing the clean lines of a space that wasn't about grandeur, but presence. The community room inside the Quinn Center for Restorative Voices had no marble, no chandeliers, just circles of chairs, shelves of journals, and a white wall waiting to hold new stories. It was late August. The sun outside was soft, now hanging lower in the sky. I stood quietly near the coffee urn, refilling paper cups for guests who didn't recognize me. Former patients, social workers, students. No media, no press kits, no applause. Just people. Louisa caught my eye from across the room. She was wearing her usual navy blazer, clipboard in hand, but her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen since before they tore her out of the foundation. She was thriving. She belonged here. So did I. We'd set out 3 tables for lunch. It wasn't catered. I brought the muffins. Louisa made lentil stew. Ethan had delivered homemade bread from a little Italian bakery in Tribeca that I loved, though he insisted he'd made it himself until I found the receipt tucked in the bag. He arrived quietly, slipping in through the back with sleeves rolled and hair a little messy from the breeze. He kissed my cheek in greeting. Nothing more. No pressure. I liked the vibe, he said, eyes scanning the place. Peaceful. No one shouting about synergy. That's why you're not on the board, I teased. I offered once, he grinned. You threatened to set my spreadsheets on fire. I shrugged. Some legacies burn better than others. He glanced toward the framed photos on a nearby shelf. There was one of me as a child in overalls sitting in my father's lap. Another of the foundation team, Louisa, Dr. Keller, and me, long before it all broke. Then there was the final frame. It held a photo of the Quinn family at Sienna's engagement party, everyone polished pristine. I had placed it face down. On the back, I'd written, I survived. That's enough. I left it that way. Later, someone tapped the microphone. A young woman barely out of college stood behind the podium, gripping her cue cards like a lifeline. She was here as part of the first speaker series, Voices Unheard. She cleared her throat. I was told I was too sensitive to lead. That crying made me weak. That speaking out made me unstable. The room hushed. She looked over at me. I didn't nod. I didn't mouth anything. I just whispered, barely audible. Your turn. And she spoke. Not perfectly, not without tremble. But she told her story. And the room held her. As people filtered out later, Ethan lingered. His eyes traced the slogan newly painted behind my desk in deep gray script. Not erased. Rewritten, he read aloud. Strong tagline, he added. You get that from a branding firm from a breakdown? I replied. He smiled, then a little crooked. Well, boss, he said. You did it. I looked at him, then past him to the empty chairs, the flicker of possibility left in their arrangement. No label needed, I said. He didn't argue. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. Not to him. Not to Vivian. Not even to myself. Just peace. And the echo of words I now understood: legacy is not what you inherit. It's what you rescue from fire. She was never meant to shine, not in their world. But in the quiet hum of a new beginning, she chose clarity over applause and truth over legacy. What they buried in whispers, she unearthed with resolve. Justice didn't roar. It settled irrevocably like dust after a storm, quiet but undeniable. When power is built on erasure, even a single voice can undo an empire of silence. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth.